Yo, 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 what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftinbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner, as you can see. This week, we're diving into why you should tape your mouth more. Hopefully you don't have to tape your mouth more, but essentially you want to leverage your nose for breathing more. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you four specific reasons why. And I want to make this quick because as I'm talking, I'm breathing through my mouth, I think.
Quickly, come on now, let's go.
And it's hard, and I'm talking about breathing through your nose, and I'm talking, with my mouth and sneaking in breaths here, and I'm contradicting myself. Don't want to do that. So, it is often overlooked that the nose evolved with the respiratory system, while the mouth, although it pulls double duty, really evolved with the digestive system. That's why we don't eat through our nose. I guess, you could, but you can find it on YouTube. And today, especially in these crazy times, I'm going to make the case for leveraging the, natural respiratory tools to ingest oxygen, what we need to survive, to breathe, to live, and everything else. And I think it's time to, So nasal breathing has been linked to things such as improved posture, heightened immune system, reduced anxiety, less oxidative stress, lower inflammation, and things such as better athletic performance and memory. And we're going to take time today to dive into four of these. And I think I mentioned them. If not, it's going to be a surprise. First off, improved immune defenses. And this one might be important in times of, some sort of contagion, some pathogen, some virus floating around where you want to put yourself in the best position to win. I don't know. Just saying. When you breathe through your mouth, you are unknowingly bypassing your innate immune system. That system that is here to protect you from the outside world, from pathogens, viruses, and all their nefarious friends. It's like bypassing TSA at the airport. Yes, I know you would love to do it. I would love to do it too, but I would never want to see Joe Schmo just walk on by and get on the same plane as me, just because they thought he was a trustworthy guy. So by intentionally breathing through your nose, you get a little extra screening. What type of screening? Well, mucus and cilia in the nasal passage assist in isolating and trapping inhaled pathogens, priming them to let our immune system do what our immune system does best. What else? Well, when pathogens are inhaled, exosomes, or tiny fluid sacs on the edge of cells, are immediately secreted to attack the intruder. Okay, most likely intruders, with an S. These exosomes also shuttle protective proteins along the airway to protect other cells and mitigate the threat before it makes its way to the lungs, where it begins to have open access to our bodies. All these findings were published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology, where researchers describe this exosome response as similar to kicking a hornet's nest, if you were a pathogen and the hornet's nest was your immune system. Paints the picture, right? And for me personally, I kind of like to describe it as a micro game of Mrs. Pac-Man. Pretty damn cool. And as an added bonus, the nitric oxide that is produced in our nasal cavities and paranasal sinuses, wherever those are, act as a potent antifungal, antiviral, and antibacterial agent. And, by the way, just to remind you, you get none of these benefits by breathing through this thing, your mouth. That was the first one. What else does nasal breathing do? Another thing you may have not known is your nasal passage is essentially an in-house air filter. It's built right in. It warms, humidifies, cleanses, and filters air to prepare it for delivery to the lungs. It traps large particles with the thousands of nasal hairs and small particles with the, I don't know how many, but a lot of mucous membranes. The structures within the nose regulate the direction and velocity of the airstream to maximize its exposure to a network of arteries, veins, lymphocytes, and nerves. All this to help facilitate that immune reaction that we talked about before. Nasal breathing also adds air resistance, and air resistance is required during inhalation to maintain the elasticity of the lungs. This resistance also results in the air passing through the nasal airway being slowed, allowing it to mix with nitric oxide, which we talked about before and we'll talk about later, that is produced in the nasal sinuses. And this increase in nitric oxide provides downstream benefits such as expanding blood vessels, increasing blood flow, and lowering your overall cardiometabolic risk. Pretty cool stuff with that in-house air filter. But how does it affect us at that, micro level? All that stuff that has to do with energy balance. Let's see. So when it comes to energy balance and fatty acid oxidation, nasal breathing can have an impact. And let me walk through why and how nasal breathing is optimal when you're trying to lose fat and maintain muscle mass. We humans, and animals in general, gain weight when the extra energy that we consume, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, gets converted to triglycerides and stored in adipocytes, or fat cells. These triglycerides are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Research suggests that to lose fat, we need to aerobically, with air, mobilize and break down these triglycerides, releasing the carbon. You still with me? And how does all this get released? Well, the majority of it is released through our lungs, on our exhale. Essentially what this means is we need to inhale oxygen to break down fat. Now, obviously exercise, which is a form of movement that naturally, makes us breathe more, is a way to do this. But what about becoming more efficient? Let's explore. On average, we exhale/inhale, whichever way it's going, 500 milliliters per breath. I can't measure, but around there. This seems like a lot, right? 500. Well, not so much when you take into the account that the average human has the respiratory capacity to inhale and exhale up to 3,500 milliliters, essentially sixfold of what the average human inhales. We have this capacity, we're just not using it. The only true way that we can really reach our innate respiratory capacity and improve respiratory efficiency is by leveraging our body's natural and primary breathing apparatus. Not the mouth, that guy. Nasal breathing imposes approximately 50% more resistance to the airstream. This right there results in a 10 to 20% increase in oxygen uptake. Let's just say that we increase our per breath oxygen intake by a modest twofold. Multiply that right there by 1,700 daily breaths, 360 days a year, and we're going to be making a little dent in fatty oxidation by just altering the way we breathe. And as a disclaimer, and I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it because I don't want to confuse people, this totally depends on one's eating habits too. You can't breathe your way out of a shitty diet. Come on now. Now let's finish this up by talking about performance, athletic performance, or any performance. I think breathing helps. Like we discussed before, nasal breathing adds a fair amount of resistance when you intake air. It essentially takes longer to fill up the lungs, and it requires deeper belly breaths to get this done, leveraging our diaphragm, or that muscle right under the lungs that really lets it expand. Now, as you can imagine, extraneous exercise typically comes with heavy breathing and the requirement of a lot of oxygen, fast. And that's why most of us lead with mouth breathing. It kind of just happens naturally. You can get more in at once, even though you are probably horribly inefficient. But what happens when we begin to build the habit of nasal breathing during exercise? We naturally take in less oxygen. It creates a lower oxygen environment in our bodies and really mimics exercising at high altitudes, which is a common training practice among elite athletes. And over time, our bodies physiologically adapt to this low oxygen environment. And some of this adaptive change comes in the form of improved mitochondrial function, as well as increased red blood cell production. The master adapter is at it again. And ever since I came across this research and fact a couple of years ago, I've transitioned all my exercise, all that I can do, to nasal breathing, and it has totally made a difference. Running a couple of miles for the first time, just breathing through your nose, a lot of interesting things happened. One, it was super duper hard. Two, I noticed that I kind of crunch over when I run. And the only way that I could actually breathe and breathe through my nose while running was to run up straight more, have an improved, really running posture. And I never noticed that until I just started breathing through my nose. So that's a little story. And it gets easier. Like now I could do it, no problem. Gets easier. You just gotta, be able to blow your nose a little bit. And I just want to point out too that we can't forget that deep nasal belly breath is the fastest way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, stress-free, relaxed part of your nervous system. And it has so many downstream benefits of just tapping into that. Most of us stay in more of a sympathetic state, which is a fight or flight state. And we're not running from saber-toothed tigers anymore. We're running from that email. We're running through that relationship stress. We're running through that daily commute stress. It's when all these innate biological systems get tapped into to respond to threats, and we're not even threatened. So here's where I'll leave you. Breathe through your nose. It's one of the most powerful natural tools that you have, and it is free. Use it during your day, during exercise, during eating, during dancing, even sleeping, especially sleeping, everywhere. No other intervention gives you the power to alter your biochemistry at literally a moment's notice. It's a tool you should always have in your toolbox. And a very simple breathing technique that you can start to leverage is something called box breathing. And that's simply breathing in for a number of seconds, holding for a number of seconds, breathing out for a number of seconds, and keeping the breath out for a number of seconds. And with box breathing, it's typically the same amount of time. So with 4 seconds, you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, you keep that air out for 4 seconds, and you repeat for a couple of minutes or as long as you need to. Next time you're stressed, try it out. It'll literally blow you away. See what I did there? And after a horrible sign-off joke like that, I think it's time to show myself the door. So, if you'll excuse me,